They said her face would doom him. They said her presence would shame his bloodline. They said the marriage was punishment. The morning the Apache Council announced it, the wind cut through the canyon like a blade, sharp and unforgiving. Dust rose in thin spirals across the hard earth, curling around the ankles of the men gathered in the circle. No one spoke at first, not when the elder cleared his throat, not when the drums fell silent, not even when all eyes turned toward the man who stood apart from the others, tall and unmoving, like a carved figure of stone. Taza Black Elk did not bow his head. He had faced enemy fire without flinching. He had watched friends die beside him and kept riding. He had earned his scars honestly, on open land under an open sky. But nothing had prepared him for this moment, when his fate would be decided not by battle but by whispers. "You will marry Nia," the elder said at last. The name settled into the circle like ash. A few men shifted uncomfortably. One woman inhaled sharply and looked away. Someone muttered. A word that wasn't meant to be heard but was understood all the same. The ugly girl. Taza felt it then. Not anger, not shame, but something colder. Something dangerous. He had known this was coming. Ever since he had challenged the council's decision to surrender land at the river bend. Ever since he had spoken more loudly than a warrior was meant to speak. They had been waiting. Waiting for the right punishment. That would not draw blood, yet would still break him. Marriage was sacred among the Apache. It was bond, honor, legacy, and they were turning it into a weapon. Nia lived on the far edge of the settlement, where the ground sloped unevenly and the tents stood thinner, quieter. She was known for her silence, her bent posture, her scars left by childhood illness and a fire that had taken her mother. One side of her face bore the mark of it, skin drawn tight, lips slightly uneven, one eye never fully opening. Children stared. Men avoided looking at her entirely. Women pitied her. No one loved her. "Do you accept?" the elder asked. The question was ceremonial. Refusal was not an option. Taza's jaw tightened. He did not look toward the edge of the gathering. He did not allow himself to search for her. To do so would make this real in a way he wasn't ready to face. "I accept," he said. The circle exhaled, relieved and cruel all at once. From where Nia stood, half hidden behind a woven tent flap, the world tilted. She had heard rumors. She had heard laughter. She had told herself not to hope. But when the words carried across the wind, spoken clearly in Taza Black Elk's voice, her knees weakened. She gripped the edge of the fabric to remain standing, not because she loved him, because she knew him. Everyone did. Taza was the man girls dreamed of and mothers prayed their daughters might marry, strong, unyielding, fire-eyed, the kind of man whose shadow felt larger than his body. To be bound to him, forced upon him, felt like cruelty not just toward him, but toward her as well. She already knew how it felt to be unwanted. The wedding came quickly. Too quickly for thought, too quickly for mercy. No songs were sung in joy, only in tradition. No smiles lingered long. When Taza stood beside her, his presence was like heat near a flame, controlled, distant, never touching. He did not look at her face. She noticed that most of all. That night, in the small shared hut prepared for them, silence pressed down harder than any argument. The fire crackled softly. Outside, the settlement slept. Nia sat near the wall, hands folded in her lap, eyes lowered. Her voice, when it came, barely disturbed the air. "You do not have to speak to me," she said. Taza stiffened. He had not expected her voice to be steady or kind. "I will keep to myself," she continued. "I will not shame you in public. I will not expect—" "That will be enough," he interrupted, sharper than intended. She nodded once, accepted it, like she accepted everything. He lay down with his back to her that night, staring into darkness, telling himself this was justice, not cruelty, telling himself he could endure anything if it meant keeping his pride intact. He did not tell himself she deserved this. Days turned to weeks. Weeks into months. The settlement watched closely, waiting for signs of conflict, rejection, humiliation. But Nia was careful. Too careful. She rose before others, worked longer, spoke less. She cooked for him and left the bowl near the fire without comment. She mended his clothes with hands that trembled only when she thought no one could see. And slowly, against his will, Taza began to notice things. She never complained. She never asked for affection. And when others mocked her quietly, she pretended not to hear. The first crack in his certainty came one cold evening when he returned injured from patrol. Blood soaked his sleeve. He had expected herbs, maybe silence. Instead, he found her kneeling before him, eyes focused, hands sure. "This will sting," she said. And when it did, when pain flared and he hissed, she did not rush. She did not apologize. She worked with confidence, competence, care. Her face, scarred and uneven, was gentle in the firelight. For the first time, he looked fully at her. And for the first time, the story he had believed about her failed to hold. But pride is slow to fall. And love, when it comes uninvited, rarely arrives quietly. Outside, unseen, the council still waited for him to break. Inside that small hut, something far more dangerous had begun. If this story pulled you in, don't stop here. Stories like this only grow deeper, darker, and more beautiful from here. Subscribe to the channel to hear how a forced marriage turns into a love no one saw coming, and how the very woman they mocked becomes the only one who truly understands him.